You know, people keep making me read these bad TikTok romance books, and they're basically all the same. So it is nice for once in a while one of them to come along and do something just a little bit different. Silver Elite, instead of taking a vague, crappy fantasy aesthetic for the plot that it's obligated to put in between sex scenes, instead of that, it takes a vague and crappy science fiction aesthetic for the bad plot that it's obligated to put between sex scenes. Imagine every really bad young adult dystopia that came out after the Hunger Games got big, and then remove anything interesting, anything original, remove any sort of character or personality from it, and then add some X-rated sex scenes. And that's it. That's Silver Elite. You already know the story. That's it.
People will buy anything. That doesn't mean you should do it.
The other thing that it does differently than all these other bad TikTok romance books is that it is a little bit worse than most of them.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So it takes place hundreds of years in the future. There's some sort of vague apocalypse. There's an authoritarian regime in the ruins of North America. Everybody acts like they're in middle school. You know, things like that. You've seen this setting before. But it does do one thing differently. Ren, the protagonist, might actually be the dumbest protagonist from any book that I have ever read in my life. And I used to read shonen manga. Ren actually starts off as a member of the rebellion against the evil government. Like, she's 20 years old at the beginning. She's not a teenager. She's an adult. She's still young, but she is an actual adult. And she's an assassin for the rebellion. Like, she does some kind of unsavory things for them. She takes out their enemies for them. And for about 10% of the book, I was actually kind of into that, because I was thinking, yes, I'm not going to have to wait for her to moan about how she doesn't want to be involved or whatever, and then we spend 80% of the book with her puttering around before she inevitably joins the rebellion, and then after she joins the rebellion, the actual plot starts. You know, again, she's an adult, but she's still young, but she's lived a little bit, and she does have motivations, and she has an actual life she wants to get to, and you know, she has stuff she wants to do. So I was thinking for the first chunk of the book, like, okay, this is clumsily written, but I'm kind of into this. You know, the protagonist has a goal. She wants revenge, and she wants to fight this evil government, so I thought it would be easy for the story to just sort of go. You know, there would be a plot. There would be events that lead into one another. But then after the 10% mark, Ren just goes to school. And that is the rest of the book.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
Like, the book pretends that this is some sort of super advanced and dangerous military special forces training, but it's just middle school. You know, everyone there is supposedly an adult, but they all act like they're 12, complete with gossip, emotional immaturity, general stupidity, and just being irritating. Like, the only way in which they don't act like children is the hardcore sex scenes. Now, normally I would do a summary here, but I don't need to do a summary because there is not a plot here. Like, in fact, this whole video, there's not going to be a whole lot of organization. It's just going to be a list of stuff that annoys me. So we have Ren, the protagonist. She's a member of the rebellion, which is called the Uprising, which is a lazy and stupid name. At the beginning of the book, she makes a really impressive shot with her rifle when she takes down a predator, and somehow everyone immediately sees that and immediately figures out that she is the super special main character. But her uncle Jim, who is not actually her uncle, but he's the man who raised her, he is the one that takes the blame for her super special rifle shot, and he is executed because he's a member of the rebellion too, but he's not the super cool sniper like our uber special main character is. And Ren also gets punished because they don't find out she's a member of the Uprising, but they find out, you know, her father figure was, so she also gets punished for it. And instead of going to prison or a labor camp or just straight up being executed, she is made to undergo elite training and join the military. And you could maybe excuse that if she was a conscript thrown on the front lines, but she instead gets to be one of their super uber special cool special forces, which is just called elite. Once again, a lazy fucking name.
Enough!
And then she spends the vast majority of the book just training. Please note that I put quotes around that because she can already do everything that they're training to do. Like, she's not growing or getting better. She's literally just showing off to the audience. You know, I've said before that for whatever reason, books like this are just allergic to the very concept of character development. You know, like we can't have it so that the main character is bad at something to begin with and she gets better over time. We have to give the audience instant gratification all the time for everything, which just makes for really, really boring reading experiences. A couple of times in the story, she gets dicked down by a guy named Cross, who is her boss and who is also the son of the evil dictator. Eventually, she gets found out as a spy, even though she's not actually a spy, and then she runs away to join the uprising. Except she was already a member of the uprising at the beginning of the story, so this kind of feels like two separate drafts that just got smashed together and were not edited very well. And that's where the book ends. Like, she rejoins the rebellion, and that's it. There's nothing else here. I'm not leaving anything out. So let me explain a bit more about how dumb Ren is. She has sex with and enters a relationship with her boss, who is also the son of the evil dictator. Do I need to say anything else? Ren is just so lacking in any sort of intelligence and any sort of self-control that she thinks this is a good idea. You know, it's not that she's trying to get close so that she can spy on him and give information to the rebels or anything. She is literally just horny. That is literally all the reason she has for doing this. Okay. Now, granted, she also spends some time whining about how the uprising, the rebellion that she was a member of and helped assassinate people for, kills people. Like, she's upset that the people she killed people for are killing people. That's the sort of book that you people made me read. And it's even worse than that because the army in this book, the evil military, is literally in the process of committing a genocide against Ren and people like her. We'll get a little bit more into that later, but they're literally in the process of doing that, and they're not even trying to hide it or anything, but Ren's just sitting there like, how dare you kill soldiers who volunteered to help commit a genocide against my people? Like, it would be one thing if she was mad at them for targeting civilians, or if the uprising used particularly brutal methods of killing soldiers. Like, if that was happening, I could understand her being upset. You know, e.g., they used chemical weapons, or they beheaded soldiers after taking them prisoner or something, but they don't. They don't do anything like that. Maybe the author was trying to go for a sort of moment where Ren is like, oh my god, who have I thrown my lot in with? But if that's what she was trying to do, it fucking fails, because it doesn't go nearly far enough to make the uprising look unhinged. They don't even look extreme, because again, the villains here are, again, it's a dictatorial regime which outlaws religion, among other things, and it executes dissenters, and it's, again, doing a genocide against a group of people that Ren belongs to. So the people fighting against that really don't have any extreme ideology or anything, so they seem pretty normal. If you wanted to do something like this, you would need to have the uprising do something crazy, like melt someone's skin off with white phosphorus, or blow up schools and hospitals, or use human shields or something. And then the audience can go like, whoa, who do these guys think they are? Israel? While she's in training, Ren does very half-heartedly try to escape once, and then she decides to do absolutely nothing for the remainder of the book. She doesn't try to contact the uprising, who, I need to remind you, she was a member of these guys at the beginning of the book, but she doesn't try to contact them, she doesn't try to escape, she doesn't try to sabotage the people who murdered her uncle, the man who raised her, basically her dad. She does nothing. She also seems to think that she can hide the fact that she's psychic. By the way, psychics exist in this because the super special main character needs to be oppressed by society. You know, so the genocide that's going on is against the psychics because, I don't know, people with superpowers are really easy to oppress. Hi, Ayn Rand, what are you doing here? Ren thinks that she can hide it despite the fact that she has a mark on her skin, which all psychics in this book have a mark on their skin, which, you know, people can just see that and instantly go, hey, that's a psychic, and she has to change and shower around other soldiers, and she just thinks, no, I can keep that hidden forever. That's fine, I'm not gonna try and escape, because it's only a matter of time before I inevitably get caught. Like, she's also just generally bad at lying. You know, she doesn't know what she's doing at any stage, so the plot doesn't actually move. It sputters until there's a climax. There's a bunch of scenes, and none of them lead into each other or tie into any sort of bigger narrative at all. Ren also has nothing resembling a personality or beliefs. You know, like if she was committed to taking down the bad guys, that might make us care about anything she says or does, but it also might get in the way of projecting onto her. Like she's perfectly fine working for the people who at the beginning of the book murdered her uncle and are trying to kill her. Like she just doesn't think much about working with these people. She doesn't have any beliefs at all. It's kind of ironic that people seem to think that self-insert fantasies are best served by having protagonists that have nothing to them. Like if you want to do a self-insert fantasy, you have to give the protagonist one or two traits so that the audience can latch onto them and go like, "Oh, he just like me, for real, for real." You know, like give them mean parents, or they're lacking direction in life, or they have social awkwardness, or something like that. And then after you take that one or two relatable traits, you can just add all the cool and badass stuff on top of it, and it hits a lot harder. The world is just really stupid too. I feel like that goes without saying, but obviously I need to elaborate a little bit. So there's a vague apocalypse sometime in the past. Again, you've read The Hunger Games. You know what this is like. There's a vague apocalypse sometime in the past. Now there is an area called the Blacklands where no light exists at all. If you bring a flashlight or try to light a fire or something, it won't work. It's still pitch dark. Why? Because fuck science, I guess. Yeah, I honestly wouldn't question this if this was fantasy. I would just be like, okay, it's magic of some sort. It doesn't have to follow the laws of physics, but this doesn't have that. This is supposed to be science fiction. There needs to be at least the appearance of science in your science fiction, guys. World building is not just adding stuff to your setting. It's adding stuff and then showing how it interacts with all of the stuff that's already there, and making sure that it makes sense in the way it interacts with all this stuff that's already there. Main character girl is also so special that after she finishes her training near the end of the book, she doesn't have a set schedule or duties. Reminder, she's in the military. She just joined their special forces, and she has no set schedule or duties. She specifically says she wakes up whenever she wants and just wanders around the base. Like, okay, special forces soldiers do tend to have privileges that regular infantry and other guys don't, but they still have jobs to do. You know, it's such a weird moment. Like, but it's obvious that no one who writes in this genre has any idea how anything works. And I'm not just talking about military stuff, but like life in general. They just don't seem to understand how anything works. They just kind of write stuff in such a way that they can show off how special main character girl is. Militaries are professional environments where everybody has a job. Now, they are often chaotic, yes. Like, obviously, they're often chaotic. You get a large number of people together like that and try to push them in one direction. Yeah, things get chaotic sometimes. But there's also doctrine and rules for stuff. The elite would be training, or they'd be going on raids against uprising cells, or they would just be fighting in straight-up battles against the rebels. So, making it into the super cool unit is not the end of the journey. I think it goes without saying that this author just straight up doesn't understand how wars work, because in this book, no one seems to be fighting on either side. There is just a vague conflict in the background, and also the uprising, who are a bunch of guerrilla insurgents, have fighter jets, which is not how that works. And of course, there is the elephant in the room. Why would you send somebody that you arrested into elite? You know, the super special, uber cool special forces that are going to be doing all the most important sensitive jobs. Why would you send somebody that you arrested there? Like, again, I hate that fucking name, just elite. I hate it. But the thing is, Ren was arrested because the government has decided that they can't trust the family members of rebels. And then they put her into a position where she has ample opportunities to spy on them, or sabotage something, or assassinate high-ranking officials. Like, at one point, she's literally a couple of feet away from the evil dictator. And if this was a properly written book, maybe something would come of that. Like, she would attempt to kill him or something, but nothing happens. She just goes, hey, it's the evil dictator that killed my family and is trying to kill me. Weird. Again, if she knew she was gonna be close to him, she's already assassinated people for the uprising before. This could easily be an interesting subplot or something where she tries to go after him, but Whatever. Instead, our brave heroine just stands by while a different rebel kills the evil dictator near the end of the book, because why would we want a protagonist to actually fucking do something? Look, the point is, Ren is so untrustworthy in the eyes of this evil government that she has to be arrested, but she can also be trusted to work for them. How the fuck do you write that and not see the issue? I already know the answer. The person who wrote this is probably just kinda dumb and didn't think it through. I suppose the more important part is that main character girl does literally nothing wrong. You know, she doesn't screw up to get herself caught. She doesn't do anything morally questionable to get arrested. She just shows off how cool she is, and then she's forced to be cool and smart by the bad guys so that she can be the center of the story, while never having a single thought, or taking a single action for herself. What a likable protagonist. A while ago I read a book series called Article 5, you can go check out my video on that if you haven't already watched it, and that actually did have a similar issue, where main character girl did literally nothing to be arrested at the beginning of the story, but at least she went to a really harsh boarding school, which was basically a prison just for, minors, and then she actually escaped. She didn't suddenly forget that she hated the people who had wronged her, and then she also didn't suddenly become the bodyguard to the president or whatever. No, she was treated like a criminal, and then she escaped and went on to join the rebels, and then the rest of the story unfolds. Now, on Twitter I did make a comment about how Ren in this book is very dumb despite the story treating her like she's smart, and somebody brought up Shiro Emiya, who is the main character from an anime called Fate Stay Night. And I don't think that's a very good comparison, because Shiro is kind of deliberately stupid. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but if you've seen that show, basically, Shiro has a hero complex, and so he rushes headlong into situations and gets himself in trouble. He doesn't think things through. And other characters get frustrated with him for acting this way. And the audience gets frustrated with him for acting this way too. It's sometimes annoying to watch him make these really, really obvious mistakes, but that's deliberate on the part of the writers. It's a flaw in his character, and the writers understand that it's a flaw, and he faces consequences for it. Ren is supposed to be smart and capable, but everything she does points to the opposite. People, again, call out Shiro for his behavior, and they react in an appropriate way. But Ren in Silver Elite, everyone just kind of loves her because she's the protagonist. She's not the protagonist because she's super special and everyone likes her. Everyone likes her and she's super special because she's the protagonist, if that makes sense. Now, I really don't have that much to say about the world as a whole. It's a setting that we've all read 100 times before. There are a couple of details worth noting, though. There is one thing I actually kind of liked, and that's that it's made clear the majority of the population is actually pretty supportive of the dictatorship, which is generally how it works. Either the majority, or a plurality, or just a very large and powerful minority will be supportive of the regime. It's not just one guy and his faceless goons. Most people in this setting are scared of psychics, and they are okay with them all being killed. And they go along with the dictator stuff because it's easier and they just don't see a better alternative. That is actually a pretty good detail that I don't see very often. And I keep touching on this, but the naming is just lazy as fuck. It's not even bad, it's just lazy, and I can't stand it. We have a rebellion? Well, let's just call it the Uprising, with, the first letters capitalized. The big corporation that influences the government? That's just called the company. All the rich elites of society? Those are just called the capitalists. The Special Forces unit? That's just called elite. The religious people who live outside of civilization? They're just called the faithful. There's a small town in this book which is literally called Hamlet. I'm not making that up. There is zero creativity, zero thought, zero heart, and zero soul put into any of this. At this point, you could literally just have the bad guys be called villains. It would have exactly as much effort put into it as this shit. Capitalizing nouns is not world building, you're just lazy and unimaginative. And if you ever read a book that is not some variation on the popular TikTok book, you'll immediately realize that. Because I've said that before, I'll say it again. There's not a bunch of popular books on TikTok. There is one popular book on TikTok. They are all exactly the same. The names of organizations are lazy here, but so are the names of people and characters. Like, there are guys named Xavier and Cross, and I swear I have read 8 other books in this exact genre that had characters with those exact fucking names.
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
Which really emphasizes how they are exactly the same as every other hot bad boy in every other variation of the popular TikTok book. Like, you have to try at least a little bit, people. So there are dangerous, mutated apex predators out in the world, and the most dangerous of those predators is not mountain lions, it's not bears, it's not wolves, it's coyotes. Yeah, the most dangerous animals in this world are called white coyotes. Like, look, guys, coyotes are not dangerous unless you're an outdoor cat. They don't attack people very often, so even if, like, they're supposed to be mutated and they're, like, bigger and more aggressive or whatever, it's just really hard for me to take them seriously. Coyotes are not that dangerous. Now, there's one other thing I did kind of like about this setting, and that's that when psychics talk to each other with telepathy, their voice sounds the way that their voice sounds to them, rather than it's the way it sounds to other people. Like, if you ever listen to yourself on recording, you'll think that, wow, my voice sounds different than it does when I talk. It's basically that. And that's actually a pretty neat detail. Now, that detail is only there so that we can have a really stupid twist about how Ren's psychic friend that she's had since she was a kid, but never actually seen in person, is actually the evil dictator's son. And they can go like, OMG, they're soulmates! Like, fuck off. Like, it's a dumb twist, and that's the only reason this detail is there, but I do like the detail. Now, speaking of Cross, the evil dictator's son, he also doesn't make sense. Like, he's perfectly happy working in this evil military that is committing genocide against psychic people, but also him and his mom are psychic people, and he also does nothing to help except when main character girl enters the picture. Like he's not trying to sabotage or, you know, steer the army in a better direction or anything. Like, he's perfectly fine being here until main character girl comes along because she's just so special. Like, he just was not doing anything, and then he suddenly decides he's a freedom fighter near the end. And that raises a couple of questions, like, is he only a freedom fighter for her? Was he a double agent for the rebels all along? And if so, if he was a double agent for the rebels, why would he put his mission in danger to have sex with his underling, who he doesn't know is psychic at the time, and also doesn't know is in the uprising? Like, she's supposed to be in the uprising, but like, they just forget about that. Also, it is technically allowed for the two of them to be in a sexual relationship, even though he is her superior officer. Like, it's technically allowed. There's no rules against it. Cross just says that he personally doesn't do it because he thinks it's inappropriate. Well, he says that for about 5 minutes, and then he just has sex with her. Yeah, there's negative sexual tension between these two guys. Like, I barely even get why they're supposed to be attractive. Like it'd be one thing if it was like, okay, there's no sexual tension, but at least they're both hot. But there's not any good descriptive prose here, so I don't really know what either of them is supposed to look like or how attractive they're supposed to be. And they have no personalities beyond thinking that the other one is hot, so there's nothing else to latch on to here. You know, speaking of bad prose, the writing itself in this book, to call it amateurish would be an insult to perfectly good teenage writers on fiction press. You know, every time the author wants to convey a strong emotion, it doesn't work because the words she uses are just way too weak. For example, near the beginning of the book, when Ren sees her uncle gets executed, she mentions that she hates the people who are about to do it. And she says, they're about to shoot a man to death, and that's kind of clunky the way she wrote it, but it's also just not very strong. You know, you want to use stronger words, like they're about to murder a man, or they're about to execute a man. You know, you want to use stronger words so that you can drive home the horror and the anger that Ren is feeling at the injustice of the situation. That way, the audience feels it as well. And every big scene is like that, including the sex scenes. Now, I hate this sort of TikTok horniness because it takes precedence over everything else. You know, dramatic scenes that are supposed to be doing something for the story, and they'll go on like 5-paragraph long tangents about how much they want to see this dude's dick. Like it's very obnoxious. But even if I didn't hate that sort of TikTok horniness, these scenes would just be boring, because it says stuff like, he put his hand against my butt. Like, okay, cool, Ren, I don't care. Like, Fourth Wing is bad, but it is at least written in such a way where I could understand what was happening. You know, at every turn, I knew what was going on. Silver Elite doesn't have that. There are parts where I needed to go back and re-listen to what was going on. It's confusing, man. Silver Elite is bad, okay? That is the message I'm getting to here. Silver Elite is bad. There is very little reason to read it, no matter what your taste is. Even if you like the popular TikTok book, you're probably not going to like Silver Elite. And I'm not just saying that. This book actually did get some hate over on Book Talk, even from people who would normally love this bullshit. A lot of them criticized the same stuff that I've been criticizing here. They criticized the poor writing, the characters that don't have motivations, the general lack of plot, and the thing is, these are problems that the popular TikTok book has had for years and years now, but they didn't care back then. These people didn't care back then, and now they do. So why is that? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for the change of heart. Reason number one, Silver Elite is not fantasy, which kind of limits the self-insert potential. So, for whatever reason, having super special magic powers that you never use but make you the center of the universe is easier for these people to swallow in fantasy settings. You know, the world building that doesn't make sense is also easier for some people if you just shrug and say it's magic. You know, I mentioned earlier the Blacklands. If it was just magic, I wouldn't even care that much about it, and caring too much about world building is kind of my thing. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe these people just like fancy dresses and castles, and without that aesthetic, the book only meets 99% of their criteria, so they get mad and notice the flaws that were always there. Possible reason number two, the bubble is finally bursting. You know, maybe these people are finally getting tired of being force-fed the exact same fucking story and characters over and over. Like, there is literally no variety here. None. At all. Like, main character girl has no personality beyond being cool and perfect and hot. Her love interest is her boss, who is also young and hot because he's just so powerful and accomplished that they had to put him in charge of something. There is a government that is evil because it is evil, and now main character girl can fight it. But really, she just sits back and lets everyone else do everything for her. Even when the popular TikTok book is fantasy, they don't even bother following any of the generic fantasy plots, like a quest to recover ancient magical artifacts or defeat a dark lord. There's also no long journey to rescue a loved one, which is common in these shitty young adult dystopias that Silver Elite is aping. And since Ren is a rebel from the start, there's no arc for her where she realizes the horror of this world and resolves to fight against it. She apparently already realized that in the backstory, and then just sort of shrugs and gives up on it, and then later, near the end of the book, decides, wait, actually I want to be a rebel again. Like, again, this feels like multiple drafts that were just clumsily smashed together. Like, there's absolutely nothing new or interesting here, but the standard plot isn't there either. Like, Silver Elite is literally just a couple of bullet points for an outline. There's not a story here, it's just a list of things. Reason number three why I think people are actually hating on this one when they normally wouldn't is that it's just too bad and too clumsy. You know, there's too many holes in the plot and too many holes in the world building to ignore. The basic setup for the story is nonsense. Almost every time there's a new detail about the setting, it raises questions. There's no sexual tension, so even the gooners aren't getting much out of this. The writing itself, like I said, is not clunky. It's just straight up bad, and it's not an easy read, but it's also not a short one. It's a pretty long book. It drones on for a long time, and there's no internal logic to be found anywhere here. There is no reasonable explanation for Ren to join Elite, which is the inciting incident for the entire story. Their training isn't interesting. There's no goal that Ren is working towards, so the plot is basically non-existent. These people just exist for a while, which, admittedly, yeah, that's how real life works a lot of the time, but that's not fun to read about? Silver Elite is a step below where it needs to be, and where it needs to be is still pretty bad. Like, The bar is so low that this book trips over it, and the scales fell from everyone's eyes. I don't know, maybe I'm huffing hopium here, but I can finally see a light at the end of this tunnel. You know, I can finally see the audience getting tired of this genre. I shouldn't even call it a genre. It's just the same book over and over. They're finally getting tired of it. So I might finally get to stop hearing about porn disguised as young adult fantasy, disguised as regular fantasy. The well might finally be running dry. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that inevitably a new trend will take over, and inevitably it will have some similarities to the popular TikTok book, but I will have something new to say about it. I will have some new thoughts that occur. Maybe. I hope. Again, maybe I'm huffing hopium, but I need to have hope for something. That's all. Don't forget to like the video, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Goodbye. Hello, thanks to everyone who watched all the way to the end of the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Do you see all these names here? These are my patrons. These are the guys that send me money over on Patreon. If you want to get your name here, you can give me $5 or more a month. I really appreciate it. You can also become a YouTube channel member. That gives you the same benefits, like having early access to videos and stuff. You just don't get your name on here. Huge thanks to my $10 and up patrons, 3-Day Cat, Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin, Brother Santodes, Carolina Clay, Lexi DeLorme, Lord Tiebreaker, Michael and Katie Hake, Mr. A5013, Proscriptions of Zhuojang, Psych XS, Slumbering Jellyfish, Observing Outer Space, Tesla Shark, Toa Michael, Vevictus, and Wesley. I wouldn't be able to do this without all of these people here, as well as all the rest of you. If you can't support me that way, then again, liking the video, commenting on it, sharing it around, subscribing to my channel if you haven't, or just having a lovely day. I guess that helps too. See you around. Goodbye.